The late afternoon sun cast long shadows across the porch, painting the wooden planks in stripes of gold and shade. Grandpa Joe sat in his favorite rocking chair, its gentle creaks a familiar song. He was a kind-looking man, with wrinkles etched around his eyes like a roadmap of smiles and stories. His old army hat, perched on his head, was faded green, its brim slightly frayed. A little girl named Lily skipped onto the porch, her bright pink shoes flashing. "Grandpa Joe," she chirped, "what's that hat?" Grandpa Joe smiled, a warm, genuine smile that reached his eyes. "This old thing. This is my army hat, Lilybug." Lily's eyes widened. "Were you a soldier?" "I was," Grandpa Joe replied, his voice a little softer now, filled with memories. "A long, long time ago." Lily plopped down on the step beside his chair, her legs swinging back and forth. "Tell me about it. Was it like in the movies? Did you fight dragons?" Grandpa Joe chuckled. "No dragons, sweetheart. But it was an adventure, that's for sure. It had its ups and downs, like most things in life." He paused, gazing out at the yard, his mind drifting back through the years. The memories were like old photographs, some faded, some crystal clear. "It all started when I was about your older brother, Tom's age. I was full of beans, ready to see the world. Back then, joining the army seemed like the biggest, most exciting thing a young man could do. I wanted to be a hero, just like in the comics I used to read. I imagined myself saving the day, traveling to faraway lands, and making everyone proud." He reached up and touched the brim of his hat, a silent gesture of respect for the young man he once was. "So, I signed up. I remember the day so clearly. The recruiting officer was a big, friendly man with a booming voice. He told me all about the opportunities the army offered, travel, education, a chance to serve my country. It all sounded so amazing. I couldn't wait to get started. Mama was worried, of course. She always worried. But Daddy, he just patted me on the back and said, 'Go get him, son. Make us proud.'" But that excitement didn't last forever, Grandpa Joe continued, his voice taking on a slightly different tone. "The real adventure, as they say, began with basic training. That's where they try to turn you from a regular person into a soldier." Lily leaned forward, her eyes wide. "Was it hard?" Grandpa Joe chuckled, a low rumble in his chest. "Hard doesn't even begin to describe it, Lilybug. Imagine waking up before the sun even thinks about peeking over the horizon. Every single day. And then, running. Miles and miles of running. My legs ached, my lungs burned, and I thought I was going to collapse more than once." He paused, remembering the sheer physical exhaustion. "And the sergeants. Oh, those sergeants. They were tough cookies, always yelling, always pushing us to do better, even when we thought we had nothing left to give." He explained, "We had to learn how to march in perfect lines, how to salute properly, how to take apart and put back together our rifles blindfolded. Everything had to be just right. And if it wasn't? Well, let's just say we did a lot of push-ups." He winked at Lily. "But it wasn't all bad," Grandpa Joe added, his voice softening again. "That's where I met some of the best friends I've ever had. We were all in the same boat, tired, sore, and missing home. We learned to rely on each other, to help each other out. We'd sneak each other extra cookies from the mess hall, help each other clean our boots, and tell each other jokes to keep our spirits up. We became like a family." He remembered a young man named Billy from a small farm up north. Billy was quiet and shy at first, but he had a heart of gold. He was always willing to lend a hand, and he had a knack for fixing things. Then there was Maria, a tough girl from the city who never backed down from a challenge. She was fiercely loyal and always stood up for her friends. And there was David, the class clown, who could always make everyone laugh, even when things were at their worst. We pushed each other, supported each other, and learned to trust each other with our lives. That's what basic training was really about, building a team, a brotherhood, a bond that would last a lifetime. He smiled, a hint of pride in his voice. It was tough, but it made us stronger, not just physically, but mentally and emotionally too. It taught us discipline, resilience, and the importance of working together. And those lessons, Lily Bug, stayed with me long after I left the army. He paused, looking at Lily, and you know what? I wouldn't trade that experience for anything. After basic training, Grandpa Joe said, shifting slightly in his rocking chair, came the real test, deployment. That's when they send you to a new place, a place where you're needed. Lily's eyes grew even wider. Did you go to a jungle? Or a desert? Grandpa Joe smiled. I went to a country far away, a place I'd only ever seen in pictures and books. It was exciting and scary all at once. Imagine leaving everything you know, your family, your friends, your home, and going to a place where everything is different, the food, the language, the customs. He explained that the air smelled different, a mix of spices he couldn't quite name and the scent of unfamiliar flowers. The buildings were different, too, made of materials he'd never seen before, painted in bright, vibrant colors. And the people. They spoke a language he didn't understand, but their smiles were universal. The first few days were a blur of new sights, new sounds, and new experiences, he said. I remember feeling a little lost, a little overwhelmed. It was nothing like I had imagined from the movies. There were no dragons, no clear-cut battles between good and evil. Just a lot of ordinary people trying to live their lives in a difficult situation. He paused, his expression becoming more serious. We were there to help keep the peace, to protect the people, and to rebuild what had been damaged by conflict. It wasn't always easy. There were times when we felt frustrated, when we missed home terribly, when we wondered if we were making a difference at all. He recalled one sweltering afternoon when he and his unit were assigned to guard a small village. The villagers were wary of them at first, unsure of their intentions. But Grandpa Joe and his buddies made an effort to connect with them, learning a few words of their language, sharing their rations, and playing games with the children. Slowly, the villagers began to trust them. They shared their stories, their hopes, and their fears. Grandpa Joe learned about their struggles, their resilience, and their deep love for their community. He realized that these were just ordinary people, like him, trying to make the best of a difficult situation. That's when I started to understand what it really meant to be a soldier, he said, his voice filled with emotion. It wasn't just about fighting battles and winning wars. It was about protecting the innocent, helping those in need, and making the world a better place, one small act of kindness at a time. He looked at Lily, his eyes twinkling. And sometimes, Lily Bug, the bravest thing you can do is simply be kind. But it wasn't always easy to be kind, Lily Bug, Grandpa Joe admitted, his voice becoming more somber. There were times when things got really tough, times when I saw things that no one should ever have to see. He paused, looking out at the horizon, his eyes clouding over with a hint of sadness. Lily could tell that he was remembering something difficult. She stayed quiet, sensing that he needed a moment. One day, he began slowly, we were on patrol in a remote area. We were supposed to be delivering supplies to a small clinic, but we got ambushed. It happened so fast. 1 minute, we were driving along a dusty road, the next, there were explosions and gunfire all around us. He described the chaos that followed, the shouts of his fellow soldiers, the crackle of gunfire, the acrid smell of smoke. He remembered feeling a surge of adrenaline, a mix of fear and determination. He knew that he had to protect his friends, to get them to safety. We fought back as best we could, he said. We took cover behind our vehicles and returned fire. It was a terrifying experience. I saw things that day that I'll never forget. He didn't go into detail, knowing that Lily was too young to hear about the horrors of war. But she could sense the pain in his voice, the lingering trauma of that day. We managed to fight off the attackers, he continued, but not without casualties. Some of my friends were injured, and one didn't make it. He choked up, unable to say more for a moment. Lily reached out and gently squeezed his hand. He squeezed back, grateful for her silent support. That was a tough day, Lily Bug, he said finally, his voice hoarse. A really tough day. I felt scared, angry, and incredibly sad. I questioned everything, why we were there, what we were doing, whether it was all worth it. He explained that he had a hard time sleeping after that. He kept replaying the events of the day in his mind, wondering if he could have done anything differently, if he could have saved his friend. He felt guilty, even though he knew that he had done everything he could. It took me a long time to come to terms with what happened that day, he said. I talked to my friends, I talked to a counselor, and I prayed. Slowly, I began to heal. I realized that I couldn't change the past, but I could learn from it. I could honor the memory of my fallen friend by living my life to the fullest and by making a positive difference in the world. He looked at Lily, his eyes filled with a newfound resolve. Even in the darkest of times, Lily Bug, there is always hope. And even when things seem impossible, you have to keep fighting for what's right. You have to keep believing in the power of good. After that day, Grandpa Joe continued, his voice a little steadier now, I knew I needed to focus on the good things, on the reasons why we were there in the first place. And there were plenty of good things to focus on, Lily Bug. We weren't just soldiers, we were also helpers. He explained that, alongside their patrols and security duties, they also spent a lot of time helping the local communities. They built houses, repaired schools, and delivered food and medical supplies to those in need. I remember one time, he said, a smile returning to his face, we helped build a new schoolhouse in a small village. The old school had been destroyed in a storm, and the children had nowhere to learn. We worked alongside the villagers, hauling lumber, mixing cement, and putting up walls. It was hard work, but it was also incredibly rewarding. He described the joy on the faces of the children when the schoolhouse was finally finished. They ran inside, eager to start learning. The teachers were overjoyed, grateful for the opportunity to educate their students in a safe and comfortable environment. That was a special day, Grandpa Joe said. It reminded me that even in the midst of conflict, there is always hope for the future. It showed me that we could make a real difference in people's lives, simply by lending a helping hand. He also talked about delivering food and medical supplies to remote villages that had been cut off from the rest of the world. He remembered seeing the gratitude in the eyes of the people they helped, the relief on their faces when they received the supplies they desperately needed. We weren't just giving them food and medicine, he explained. We were giving them hope. We were showing them that they weren't forgotten, that someone cared about them. He recalled a specific instance where they delivered medicine to a sick child in a remote mountain village. The child had been suffering from a fever for days, and his parents were worried sick. The doctors in Grandpa Joe's unit were able to diagnose the illness and provide the necessary treatment. Seeing that child recover, seeing the relief on his parents' faces, that was one of the best feelings in the world, Grandpa Joe said. It reminded me that even the smallest act of kindness can have a huge impact on someone's life. He looked at Lily, his eyes shining with sincerity. Those experiences, Lily Bug, they taught me the true meaning of service. They showed me that being a soldier isn't just about fighting, it's about helping others, about making the world a better place, one small act of kindness at a time. He paused, adding, and those acts of kindness helped me heal, too, after the bad days. And it wasn't just about the big things, like building schools, Grandpa Joe added. Sometimes, the smallest gestures meant the most. He told Lily about a time when he gave a piece of his candy bar to a little boy who was sitting by the side of the road. The boy's eyes lit up, and he smiled a smile that could melt even the coldest heart. That little piece of candy probably didn't cost more than a few cents, Grandpa Joe said, but it meant the world to that boy. It showed him that someone cared, that someone saw him. He also talked about learning a few phrases in the local language, enough to greet people and ask how they were doing. He said that even those simple greetings made a big difference. It showed them that we were trying to understand them, that we respected their culture, he explained. It helped to build bridges, to break down barriers. He remembered a time when he helped an old woman carry her groceries home. She was struggling to carry the heavy bags, and he offered to help. She was hesitant at first, but eventually, she accepted his offer. We walked in silence for a few blocks, Grandpa Joe said, but I could feel her gratitude. When we reached her house, she thanked me profusely and offered me a cup of tea. I didn't have time to stay for tea, but I knew that I had made her day a little bit easier. He explained that those small acts of kindness, those everyday interactions, were just as important as the larger projects they undertook. They helped to build trust, to foster understanding, and to create a sense of community. Being in the military wasn't just about fighting battles, Grandpa Joe said, his voice filled with conviction. It was about building relationships, about connecting with people, about making a positive difference in the world, one small act of kindness at a time. He paused, looking at Lily. And those are the things that I remember most fondly, Lily Bug. The times when I was able to help someone, to make someone smile, to make someone's life a little bit better. Those are the moments that made it all worthwhile. He chuckled softly. You know, sometimes I think those little acts of kindness taught me more than I taught anyone else. They showed me the power of human connection, the importance of empathy, and the true meaning of compassion. And those are lessons that I've carried with me throughout my life. But even with all the good we did, Grandpa Joe sighed, there were still days that were just plain awful. Days when nothing seemed to go right. He recounted a time when his unit was tasked with delivering medicine to a remote village. The journey was long and arduous, taking them through winding mountain roads and across rushing rivers. The weather was terrible that day, he said. The rain was coming down in sheets, and the wind was howling like a wolf. The roads were slick and muddy, and it was hard to see where we were going. As they were driving along one particularly treacherous stretch of road, their vehicle skidded on a patch of ice and crashed into a ditch. We were all shaken up, Grandpa Joe said. But thankfully, no one was seriously hurt. But the vehicle was stuck, and the medicine was at risk of getting wet. They tried everything they could to get the vehicle out of the ditch, but nothing seemed to work. The wheels just kept spinning in the mud. We were starting to get worried, Grandpa Joe said. The village needed that medicine, and we were running out of time. Plus, it was getting colder, and we were all soaked to the bone. Just when they were about to give up hope, a group of villagers appeared. They had heard about the accident and had come to help. They brought ropes and shovels, Grandpa Joe said, and together, we managed to pull the vehicle out of the ditch. It took a lot of effort, and we were all exhausted, but we did it. They finally arrived at the village, hours behind schedule. The villagers were relieved to see them and grateful for the medicine. But by then, some of the medicine had gotten wet and was ruined, Grandpa Joe explained. We couldn't deliver as much as we had hoped. I felt terrible. We had tried so hard, but we still fell short. He remembered feeling disappointed and frustrated. He had wanted to help so badly, but circumstances had conspired against him. That was a tough day, Lily Bug, he said. It taught me that even when you do your best, things don't always go according to plan. It taught me that sometimes, you have to accept that you can't control everything, and you have to make the best of a bad situation. He added, it also taught me the importance of teamwork and community. We couldn't have gotten that vehicle out of the ditch without the help of the villagers. It showed me that when people come together, they can overcome even the most difficult challenges. He paused, reflecting on the memory. Even though it was a difficult day, I learned a lot from it. And in the end, we still managed to help some people, even if it wasn't as much as we had hoped. You know, Lily Bug, Grandpa Joe said, a thoughtful expression on his face, I don't know how I would have gotten through some of those tough times without my army buddies. They were like a family to me, my brothers in arms. He explained that they relied on each other for everything, support, encouragement, and even just a good laugh. They shared their fears, their hopes, and their dreams. They celebrated each other's successes and comforted each other during their failures. We were all so far away from home, he said, and we were all going through the same things. We understood each other in a way that no one else could. He remembered a time when he was feeling particularly homesick. He was missing his family, his friends, and everything that was familiar to him. I was sitting alone one night, feeling really down, Grandpa Joe said. My buddy, Sergeant Miller, saw that I was upset, and he came over and sat down next to me. He didn't say much, but he just put his arm around me and let me lean on him. Sergeant Miller told him about his own family back home, his wife and kids, and how much he missed them. He reminded Grandpa Joe that he wasn't alone, that they were all in this together. That simple act of kindness meant the world to me, Grandpa Joe said. It reminded me that I had people who cared about me, people who were there for me, no matter what. He also recalled a time when he made a mistake during a training exercise. He felt embarrassed and ashamed, and he was afraid that he had let his team down. My buddies didn't make fun of me or criticize me, Grandpa Joe said. They just helped me learn from my mistake and encouraged me to do better next time. They reminded me that everyone makes mistakes, and that it's important to learn from them and move on. He explained that his army buddies taught him the true meaning of loyalty, friendship, and camaraderie. They showed him that even in the most difficult of circumstances, you can always count on your friends to be there for you. Those friendships, Lily Bug, they were one of the best things about my time in the military, Grandpa Joe said, his voice filled with warmth. They taught me the importance of having people you can rely on, people who will support you through thick and thin. And those are friendships that I've cherished throughout my life. He paused, adding, some of my best friends to this day are the men and women I served with. We may not see each other often, but we know that we'll always be there for each other, no matter what. Besides the friendships, Grandpa Joe said, tapping his finger on the armrest of his rocking chair, the Army taught me a lot of practical skills, things I never would have learned otherwise. Lily looked intrigued. Like what? Well, Grandpa Joe began, I learned how to fix just about anything. Jeeps, trucks, generators. You name it. Before the Army, I couldn't even change a tire. But they taught me how to take engines apart and put them back together, how to troubleshoot problems, and how to make repairs with whatever tools were available. He explained that he had always been interested in how things worked, but he had never had the opportunity to learn about mechanics before. The Army gave him that opportunity, and he discovered that he had a knack for it. I also learned how to read maps, Grandpa Joe continued. Not just the kind you use to find your way to the grocery store, but detailed topographical maps that show you the elevation of the land, the location of rivers and streams, and all sorts of other important information. He said that learning to read maps was essential for navigating unfamiliar terrain and for planning missions. He also learned how to use a compass and how to find his way using the stars. And of course, Grandpa Joe added, I learned how to work as a team. The Army is all about teamwork. You can't accomplish anything on your own. You have to rely on your teammates, and they have to rely on you. He explained that he learned how to communicate effectively, how to coordinate his actions with others, and how to support his teammates, even when things were tough. Working as a team wasn't always easy, Grandpa Joe admitted. We all came from different backgrounds, and we all had different personalities. But we learned how to put aside our differences and work together towards a common goal. He said that the skills he learned in the Army, fixing machines, reading maps, and working as a team, had served him well throughout his life. He used his mechanical skills to fix things around the house, his map-reading skills to plan vacations, and his teamwork skills to succeed in his career. The Army taught me more than just how to be a soldier, Grandpa Joe said. It taught me how to be a resourceful, capable, and responsible person. It gave me the skills and the confidence to tackle any challenge that came my way. He paused, adding, and those skills, Lily Bug, are just as valuable in civilian life as they are in the military. But the best part of my time in the military, Grandpa Joe said, his eyes twinkling, was coming home. There's nothing like it, Lily Bug. Nothing like coming home after being away for so long. He described the anticipation he felt as his plane approached his hometown. He could see the familiar landmarks from the air, the rolling hills, the winding river, the sprawling city. My heart was pounding in my chest, Grandpa Joe said. I couldn't wait to see my family and my friends again. I had missed them so much. When the plane finally landed, he was one of the first ones off. He scanned the crowd, searching for familiar faces. And then he saw them, his mom, his dad, his brothers, and his sisters. They were all waving and smiling, their eyes filled with tears of joy. I ran towards them as fast as I could, Grandpa Joe said. And when I reached them, we all just hugged and cried. It was the best feeling in the world. He explained that his mom had cooked all of his favorite meals, pot roast, mashed potatoes, and apple pie. His dad had organized a welcome home party with all of his friends. Everyone was so happy to see me, Grandpa Joe said. They asked me about my experiences in the military, and I told them all about the good times and the bad times. He said that it felt good to be back in a place where he felt safe and loved. He could finally relax and unwind after months of stress and uncertainty. It took me a while to adjust to civilian life, Grandpa Joe admitted. I had gotten used to the routine and the discipline of the military. But with the support of my family and friends, I was able to transition back to normal life. He said that he was grateful for the opportunity to serve his country, but he was even more grateful to be home with his loved ones. Coming home, Lily Bug, it reminded me of what's really important in life, family, friends, and love, Grandpa Joe said, his voice filled with emotion. Those are the things that matter most. Those are the things that make life worth living. He paused, adding, and that's a lesson that I've never forgotten. He smiled at Lily. You know, Lily Bug, you remind me a lot of my little sister when I came home. She used to ask me a million questions, just like you. She was so curious about everything. He chuckled softly at the memory. Coming home to her was the best part of it all. So, Lily Bug, Grandpa Joe said, leaning forward slightly, if there's one thing I want you to take away from all these stories, it's this: being in the military taught me some really important lessons about life. He explained that the first lesson he learned was the importance of hard work. He said that everything in the military required hard work, from basic training to deployment to everyday tasks. There were no shortcuts, Grandpa Joe said. You had to put in the effort if you wanted to succeed. And that's a lesson that applies to everything in life, whether it's school, sports, or your future career. He also emphasized the importance of friendship. He said that his army buddies were like a family to him, and they helped him get through some of the toughest times in his life. Friendship is so important, Grandpa Joe said. It's important to have people you can rely on, people who will support you, and people who will make you laugh. He also learned about courage, not just the kind of courage it takes to face danger on the battlefield, but also the kind of courage it takes to stand up for what's right, even when it's difficult. Courage isn't about being fearless, Grandpa Joe said. It's about being scared, but doing what you have to do anyway. It's about standing up for your beliefs, even when you're the only one who believes in them. And finally, he learned about the importance of helping others. He said that his experiences in the military showed him that even the smallest act of kindness can make a big difference in someone's life. Helping others is one of the most rewarding things you can do, Grandpa Joe said. It makes you feel good about yourself, and it makes the world a better place. He looked at Lily, his eyes filled with sincerity. Those lessons, Lily Bug, they've stayed with me throughout my life. They've helped me to be a better person, a better friend, and a better member of my community. He paused, adding, and I hope that they'll help you too, as you grow up and face the challenges of life. Remember to work hard, cherish your friendships, be courageous, and always help others. He smiled warmly. Those are the lessons that I learned in the military, and they're the lessons that I want to pass on to you. And you know what else, Lily Bug? Grandpa Joe asked, a touch of pride in his voice. I'm proud. I'm proud to have served my country. It wasn't always easy, and there were times when I questioned everything. But I wouldn't trade that experience for anything in the world. He explained that serving in the military had changed him in so many ways. It had made him stronger, more resilient, and more compassionate. I learned things about myself that I never knew before, Grandpa Joe said. I learned that I was capable of more than I thought possible. I learned that I could overcome challenges that seemed insurmountable. And I learned that I had a deep sense of commitment to my country and to my fellow human beings. He said that he was grateful for the opportunity to serve alongside so many brave and dedicated men and women. He was honored to have been a part of something bigger than himself. Being in the military wasn't just a job, Grandpa Joe said. It was a calling. It was a chance to make a difference in the world. And I believe that I did make a difference, even if it was just in a small way. He looked at Lily, his eyes shining with conviction. I'm not saying that everyone should join the military, Grandpa Joe said. It's not for everyone. But I do believe that everyone should find a way to serve their community and their country, whether it's through volunteering, donating to charity, or simply being a good neighbor. He emphasized that even the smallest acts of service can make a big difference. He encouraged Lily to find her own way to contribute to the world. The military taught me how to be a better person, Grandpa Joe repeated. It taught me the importance of hard work, friendship, courage, and helping others. And those are lessons that I've tried to live by every day since I left the service. He smiled. So, yes, Lily Bug, I'm a proud veteran. I'm proud of what I accomplished, and I'm proud of the person that I became. And I hope that you'll always be proud of me too. He paused, adding softly, and I hope you'll always be proud of our country. Lily sat quietly for a moment, absorbing everything Grandpa Joe had told her. She looked at him with newfound respect and admiration. Thank you, Grandpa Joe, she said sincerely. Thank you for sharing your story with me. I learned a lot. Grandpa Joe smiled, a warm, genuine smile that reached his eyes. You're welcome, Lily Bug. I'm glad you enjoyed it. He paused, looking thoughtful. You know, Lily Bug, my greatest hope is that you'll grow up to be a good and helpful person. Someone who works hard, cherishes their friendships, has the courage to stand up for what's right, and always helps others in need. He reached out and gently squeezed her hand. The world needs more good people, Lily Bug. And I know that you have the potential to be one of them. He then carefully picked up his old army hat, which had been resting on his lap. He held it for a moment, gazing at it with a mixture of pride and nostalgia. This old hat, Grandpa Joe said, it's more than just a piece of cloth. It's a symbol of my service, a reminder of all the lessons I learned, and a testament to the sacrifices I made. He slowly placed the hat back on his head, adjusting it carefully. It fit perfectly, a familiar and comforting presence. When I wear this hat, Grandpa Joe said, I remember all the good times and the bad times, the challenges I faced, and the friendships I made. I remember the lessons I learned, and I remember the person that I became. He looked at Lily, his eyes shining with hope. I hope that one day, you'll find something that you're passionate about, something that you believe in, something that you're willing to dedicate your life to. He smiled. And I hope that you'll always remember the lessons that I shared with you today. Lily smiled back, her heart filled with gratitude and inspiration. She knew that she would never forget Grandpa Joe's stories, and she promised herself that she would try her best to live up to his expectations. The sun began to set, casting long shadows across the porch. The air grew cooler, and a gentle breeze rustled through the trees. Grandpa Joe and Lily sat in silence for a few moments, enjoying the peace and quiet of the evening. Finally, Lily stood up, ready to go inside. Thank you again, Grandpa Joe, she said. I love you. I love you too, Lily Bug, Grandpa Joe replied. Now go on inside and get some supper. And remember what I told you. Lily nodded and skipped off the porch, leaving Grandpa Joe alone with his memories. He continued to rock in his chair, his old army hat perched proudly on his head, a symbol of his service, his sacrifice, and the lessons he had learned. The creaking of the rocking chair and the chirping of crickets filled the evening air as Grandpa Joe continued to reflect on a life well lived.